We found out there is a warship coming through that estuary. I think they said, did they say 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
So they have to be out of it by then, which is an incentive.
I don't think that was the worst thing.
The jellyfish in the face.
Gosh!
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Scream.
I think probably do that and then hopefully just keep going. So
well, Mark would,
we'll keep tabs on that throughout the morning this morning.
It's 17 minutes past 7. Good morning to you. There are calls for all of those eligible to come forward for their corona vaccine. They've been stepped up by ministers.
That's after cases of the Indian variant doubled in England in the last week.
Now, one of the areas which has seen an increase in infections linked to the variant is Hounslow in West London. And we can talk now to the council's director. Thanks very much for joining us. Tell me what's going on and what your role is now, what it now involves where you are. Need areas or even schools in your area, and do you and would you?
Thank you.
Let's see, time now is 7:24. From the 1st of June, around 25% of drivers in Birmingham city centre will face a minimum £8 daily charge or a hefty fine.
It's part of the city's clean air zone to tackle high levels of pollution. Not being welcomed by everyone. Phil Mackey has more.
Kwasi Kwarteng, who is the business secretary, we can speak to him now.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Pure
incredible.
determination.
Sea's a lot colder as well than normal at this time of year.
I was so pleased, so honest. My jaw's so cold. Need to warm my hand and my jaw.
Hit in the face by a jellyfish.
And your little one.
And well done to John as well for negotiating the rising tide, swashing around his feet.
Kind of conically shaped characters.
Yeah.
And they kind of sat there with their legs apart and big black pants. But they had noses that kind of... were quite protrusive, should we say?
Maybe that was it.
That was the thing.
When he did say that
when
when he
said
did the side profile, of course, I'd never say
He doesn't, though. He doesn't.
Good value.
It's a
better
great
looking.
nickname, to be fair. Better than Gerbil. Yeah, do you remember? I've told you that before.
Thank you very much, Mike. 7:51 is the time now.
We have been following the story of Park Lane stables. Now, these stables needed to raise £1 million or face closure.
After a huge fundraising effort, the horse riding charity reached their goal. But then, just a few months later, it seems they'll need to find a new home. After all, Fiona Lambden has the story.
Hi. Released, and it's about a man who, what was his occupation? Because he stole a painting, a Goya painting.
It's like a Robin Hood character.
Yeah,
called
used
the Duke.
the proceeds.
He steals a painting in order to get money to give to good causes.
Yeah.
Jim Broadbent. I mean, people love Jim Broadbent,
could you
don't
not?
they? With us later on.
What, your favourite character, Jim Broadbent?
Well, over the years.
Yeah, where you've enjoyed him
Well, it's
most.
probably from all the Mike Leigh films, you know, because he's been in loads of Mike... And, of course, he's in Blackadder. He made sort of cameo appearances as Blackadder.
Love
Can't
it.
go wrong.
Love it. Headlines are coming up.
Former rugby.
3/4 of new COVID cases in the UK could be linked to the Indian variant. This is according to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock.
There are concerns the increase in infections could delay plans to lift all restrictions in England on June the 21st. We speak now to our political correspondent, Ben.
Now, surgeons are calling for specialist hubs to be set up in England to help tackle what they describe the colossal backlog of non-urgent operations which have been postponed because of the pandemic.
In March, around 5 million patients were waiting for surgery. That's the highest number since records began. The government says it's working to accelerate the recovery of services. Our health correspondent, Laura Foster, has this report. Quite something to watch, isn't it?
Isn't it?
And it's a reminder, it's still 23 years old, and the impact he's having in the places, the people he's talking to, and the way he's communicating and getting things done. Quite remarkable.
Just making an impact, an important one. It is 10 minutes past 8. Measuring the amount of squashed bugs, the number of squashed bugs on your car after a journey. Now, the reason you're perhaps being asked to do this is because scientists want to better understand insect populations in the UK.
The way this works is a new app is asking the public to gather information to identify where certain species are thriving and where others are in decline. Here's our Chief Environment Correspondent, Justin Rowland.
Car, yeah? And the longer you go. If you're just doing normal driving, you know, under 30 miles an hour or, you know, in your local place, the bugs don't tend to hit the car and die as much.
No, I don't think it's about the speed. I think it's basically whether the bugs are in the air is the significant factor as to whether you hit them. If you're going fast and there's no bugs in the air, that doesn't make any difference.
No, that's a different argument. Sarah knows all the answers to this. She's on the roof of Broadcasting House. Sarah, seriously, there is something to think about here with the bugs. Hopefully there are no flies up there where you are.
No flies up here.
On the further relaxation of restrictions.
We can talk now to the epidemiologist, Dr. Mike Tildesley, a regular face on this. Interesting to hear about what's happening in progression of the India variant. What have you observed and what consequences do you think we should be drawing, obviously, as we're all moving towards that June 21st date? Be scaled back, kind of stepped back from, if, bearing in mind, as you said, we knew variants were coming, but bear in mind we are dealing with the India variant at the moment. At what point do we know that the R number will never rise above 1 when we're all vaccinated? Well, and I understand how you answered. You don't want to go into specific restrictions. There are things like all legal limits on social contact removed, nightclubs reopening, restrictions on large events, performances being lifted. One of the things, and you will be very aware of this, is the hospitality industry and how it has struggled, and obviously very keen to move forward and drop those restrictions. There's often that argument, isn't there? Why on earth can we go to the supermarket, shop around, be around people who we don't know, not in our household, not all the time necessarily socially distancing if you're over veg or something like that, or in a queue, and you can go to a pub? See, isn't it? We can talk about all the science, and absolutely it is paramount. It's so important to talk about the science. But the reality is that people are struggling when it comes to the economy and are desperate to reopen safely, but desperate to, because it's not just them, it's other livelihoods as well.
Which is why, in a way, as John put it very well, isn't it? The discussions that they have as a business around the June 21st date are not academic. These are just very simple, equations around cash in, money spent, and how they can make a profit. Yeah. We'll see more of that, of course, over the coming weeks.
So many of you, I'm sure, can sympathise. Coming up in the next hour.
I think I'd slightly forgotten about that video.
So beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful song. Time now to get the news, travel and the weather where you are.
It sounds like a detective.
Does it? Really does, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Gething would be the bumbling one and Jeanette would get everything sorted.
Are you still listening in?
Yes, absolutely.
I wonder. 8:32 is the time now. Ben's looking into a subject matter that is Mark Ormrod. You may remember the name because he is this extraordinary man. His former Royal Marine lost both legs and one arm in an explosion. This was in Afghanistan back in 2007. Since that time, basically, he's just set himself the most extraordinary challenges to achieve. Today is another one of those days. Extraordinary,
even for people if they hadn't lost 3 limbs. And today, well, John Maguire is going to take us all through this because John's been spending time with him this morning and has followed him on just today's journey, epic journey. But, John, I figure you'd get the sense that this is a man who is so determined. He's also so down to earth, isn't he?
Bit of
when you can look forward to a good pizza for dinner.
And if you missed it earlier on, when he first came out of the water, literally, you say his jaw wasn't, such was the cold. Given everything, all the other challenges he's facing, literally couldn't work his jaw. Doesn't need to worry about that. None of us does. For the next few days, I think, mostly, I'm putting all these caveats in. I could, Sarah knows. Sarah knows. I'm just saying there's sunshine for some of us all of us at some point. Is that fair?
Yeah.
That was bug pre-splat, wasn't it?
That's escaped splat.
That's a better way of looking at it. Doctor Who fans, you're going to enjoy this. It's, of course, one of the most popular sci-fi series on our screens. Now, if you're a fan, you're able to adventure with your favourite Time Lord in a new immersive theatre experience. Getting up close and personal to Daleks and Cybermen is all part of the fun. As Wendy Hurrell has been finding out.
Everybody down! Everybody get down! Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down!
Time.
Good morning to you. Now, they were 5 boys from Liverpool whose success in a post-punk and politically turbulent period took them all the way to, well, Hollywood. And now an exhibition is celebrating the contribution that Frankie Goes to Hollywood made to 80s pop
culture.
We are going to talk to the band's guitarist in just a moment. First, though, here's a much welcome reminder of what happened in their heyday.
But, you know, even now, I've got that, you know, that vision in my head from the time. It's an amazing film.
Is that you are a true professional. You have got up, you got in at 2:30, you're living up to, you know, the expectation that it's all rock and roll, yet you are a professional, you came in and you're still being perky. How are you feeling this morning?
To speak to you.
Thank you. The Frankie Say 1984 exhibition opens at the British Music Experience Museum in Liverpool tomorrow.
That's all from us here on Breakfast. Back tomorrow at 6. Now it's time for Morning Live.
Thank you, Naga.